President Trump used a primetime address to sow doubt about the integrity of American elections. He accused government officials of concealing information from him about the 2020 race, which he has maintained was somehow rigged against him.
He did not produce any concrete evidence that votes were manipulated or outcomes were somehow altered, and he didn't raise any doubts about the 2016 or the 2024 elections, which he won. Fox 4's Casey Stegall is live in the newsroom tonight with more on the claims and the evidence. Casey.
Hey, good evening, Steve and Heather. President Trump said that newly declassified records show that China obtained data connected to about 220 million American voters in 18 states. The president said his administration is releasing declassified records involving cyber threats, voter databases, and foreign influence operations. Trump accused some U.S. intelligence officials of withholding reports about Chinese activity and called for investigations, firings, and possible criminal charges. He also claimed that electronic voting systems remain vulnerable to attack, citing failed efforts in Venezuela to rig its own election. It's also important to note that the president has dismantled much of the cybersecurity apparatus involved in elections. That includes firing the remaining members of the Election Assistance Commission just last week, and also gutting the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency through DOJ cuts. But he said the information China obtained could be used to exploit the registration process.
That information includes names, addresses, phone numbers, political party preferences, and other sensitive data that would be needed to register to vote and engage in other nefarious activities, which is exactly what was happening. This data loss presents an unprecedented election security nightmare.
President Trump referred the public to documents which were posted to the White House website this evening, calling the material conclusive, but he did not demonstrate that foreign actors changed a single vote in the 2020 election. Repeated reviews and audits, many run by Republicans, including the president's then Attorney General, have found no significant fraud did happen in 2020. Prior to tonight's speech, Fox 4 spoke with Sarah Chen of the Texas Civil Rights Project about how such claims should be evaluated.
Multiple government agencies led by Trump appointees have determined that that election was safe and secure. That included the Department of Justice, the Department of Homeland Security. 60 courts, including Trump-appointed judges, have also rejected legal claims about those results.
Another big talking point tonight, President Trump said that a federal review identified roughly 278,000 non-citizens or illegal residents on voter rolls across multiple states. He used all of these purported findings to renew his push for Congress to pass the Save America Act. The measure has been stalled in the Senate and would require proof of citizenship when registering for elections. It would also require photo identification at the polls and tighter limits when it comes to mail-in ballots, though non-citizen voting is already illegal and most states already require some form of voter ID. Here locally, the Texas Secretary of State's office says that it is reviewing election security in all 254 state counties, including polling sites, ballot storage, counting centers, as well as IT systems. Lawmakers did provide $8 million for that initiative, the first statewide assessment of its kind since 2019.